Hey guys, how you all doing? Welcome back to the channel. Ofer again, and today I've got a very special guest for you, GuitarMAX.
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on the channel.
Thank you for joining in.
No problem.
I'll start by saying Max is a great friend and a great guitar player and an amazing YouTuber, and it's an honor having him on the channel. So thank you again for coming, and today we're going to talk about a very interesting topic, and that's comparing a budget new age modern guitar, right?
Yeah,
That's an SBS. Tell us a little bit about them all.
So yeah, this is an SBS Showroom series. These guitars go for like under $400.
Crazy.
Like $350, $379 in that range. And it's SBS Steve Brown sound. So Steve Brown from Trickster.
Okay.
And it's basically his brand in collaboration with GFS Guitar Fetish, and they make all kinds of different guitars and guitar parts and that kind of stuff. But they came out with the SBS brand about a year and a half ago or so, and this is one of their models. And they're all like superstrat, 80s shred guitars, but they're brand new and made with budget friendly and made with all of the CNC like modern guitar manufacturing techniques.
Awesome. I love the design.
Yeah.
It kind of screams out like old pre-production Charvel in my eyes, just with some modern features like no pickup rings, recessed Floyd. I love the flame maple roasted neck.
Yeah, very nice neck, very comfortable.
Very cool. How did you start getting into these budget guitars? Because I'll start by saying, for me, these Charvels and all Jackson guitars, I could get them back in the day fairly cheap.
Yeah.
So they were kind of my budget guitars, and I kind of got into modifying them and fiddling around with them.
Before they got so collectible.
Right. So nowadays they're a bit more pricey, even though from time to time you can find them fairly cheap. But how did you toed your toes, how do you say, dipped your toes into the budget guitar world?
Well, yeah, I mean, I love budget stuff, and that's kind of what the GuitarMAX channel has become known for. But I'm still like an 80s shred fan, like deep down, regardless of how much the guitar costs. So for me, checking out guitars like the Eert or Firefly guitars or, the other budget brands, and I think the other guitar lines that GFS makes fall into that. Like they make the Slick brand of guitars with Earl Slick.
Oh, so they got like many brands?
Yeah, they've got like maybe 3 or 4 different brands that they do. But they're all kind of in that price range, like maybe $200 to $500 right in there. And when I saw that they were bringing out like a super strat, shred series, I'm like, oh, that's perfect, right?
Yeah.
And I've reviewed this guitar and several other of the SBS brand guitars, and they're super, super cool. They do have some shortcomings, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Some places where they could be upgraded, but for what you're spending on the guitar, it's so cool. It's a Charvel without Charvel price tags.
Yeah, and the first time you handed me one of those, I was pretty blown away. First of all, because you get featured like stainless steel frets, and the awesome finishes, of course, and the overall presentation of the guitar. It just screams 80s and good 80s.
Right.
Not the bad kind, right?
Yes.
So that's awesome. And yeah, today we're just going to pretty much have a conversation about the old days versus new days. These guitars, even though today some might consider it a budget guitar, the old Charvels, back in the day they were pretty pricey. They were like around $1,000, I think, which was a lot of money, right?
Especially back then. Yeah.
Right.
I'm always saying in my videos that you get so much more for your money these days because the manufacturing has gotten better. But I think today we're really going to put that to the test, because this is the guitar that is based off of all the classic shred guitars, right? And we actually have one here, so we can really pit these against each other and see how this one holds up.
For sure. And for those who don't know, this is a Charvel 475 Deluxe. It was made in the late 80s and early 90s, from 89 to 91, sorry. And this particular one is pretty modified. The body is unoriginal to the neck. I took the neck off of another 475 that I had and put it on this cool body. Originally it had a black body. It just, you know, the most awesome finish you'll ever see. So
The
I had
crackle,
to,
yeah.
right, and that was my favorite neck. I had a bunch of 475s. That was my favorite neck of all. So I combined the two. It features a shallower tremolo, which is one of my most favorite tremolo designs.
Yeah, I like them too.
Yeah, they're very comfortable. I like the short burls for the strings there.
I think it's worth noting also that with this bridge, how old is that bridge?
40 years almost.
And it still
No,
works.
no, exaggerate. 40 years.
mean,
no, 35,
It's
almost
close,
35.
yeah,
right.
35, right? Yeah. So, and that bridge is still working great.
Yeah,
Right.
but I had to change some of the parts.
Okay, so you've
It's not fully original.
done a little work.
Some of
okay.
the screws got stripped
Yeah.
over time, but overall, you're right. They do hold tuning and stay in a good shape over time. And yeah, talking about your Floyd
Yeah.
Rose,
Right.
even though it keeps tuning,
Yeah.
it's still the cheapest one available, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the least expensive Floyd Rose branded bridge
Right.
that you can get. And honestly, to me, it's the equivalent of what we used to think of as the licensed Floyds. That, you know, I mean, technically that's a licensed
That's- yeah,
Floyd,
it
you know,
says
but that's
right here.
still, it's the Charvel brand, which was
Made in
different, but-
Germany.
Yeah, yeah.
The
So, I
main
mean,
difference is these are made in China, I suppose,
Yeah,
right? And
definitely.
that's Germany.
Yeah.
Germans are good, except for
Yeah.
the Jews. I never said that. I'm Jew, I can say it. But yeah, the Chinese definitely keep the prices down.
Yep. And I think like for modern day Floyd Rose bridges, you maybe have like, I would say 4 levels. This one is the bottom level.
Yeah.
Then you have the Floyd Rose Special. Then you have the Floyd Rose 1000 series, which I think is really a very good bridge.
They are good. Yeah.
And then you have the original Floyd Rose.
Right.
And then you've got all the custom, you know, FU tone and that kind of stuff bridges. But of the Floyd Rose brand ones, this is really the entry level is a nice way to say it.
Right.
And it, I mean, people will hear it. It's not terrible. It works.
Yeah, no, it feels good. Like it feels kind of cheap, but it is serving the purpose. You know,
Right.
it is a Floyd Rose
Yeah.
tremolo.
Yeah, yeah.
And is it directly replaceable with an original Floyd?
It is. Yeah. As far as the dimensions and everything, you can swap in a
Nice.
1000 or an OFR, just drop it in.
Cool.
Yeah.
This one isn't actually. This one, because of the routing in the guitar, you can only fit the MIJ tremolos because it's a shorter routing.
Interesting.
The other interesting thing that a lot of the new modern age guitars utilized is the stainless steel frets.
Yes. Very popular these days.
Yeah, how do they do it? Like with a low price point, they just manage to squeeze it in. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think it just came down to a lot of people kept asking, you know, a lot of guitar players kept like, oh, I want stainless steel frets, you know, and enough people, there was enough demand for it, enough people asked for it,
Yeah.
where switching over to that material, you know, if you're making thousands of guitars and tens of thousands of frets, right, it's like changing the material doesn't really cost that much money if you're buying it in these huge quantities and
Right.
that kind of stuff. So I think there was just enough demand for it. And it's a cool advertising. It's a cool feature to market and advertise, right?
Yeah, it's a good selling point.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's became, I hate to say it, it kind of became a trend, but I think a good one. And it really caught on. And so these guitars have the stainless steel frets. A lot of the Schecter stuff does, and even a lot of the less expensive guitars, like the Eert guitars, which are in the same price range as this one. That was one of the first like budget brands that I saw with the stainless steel frets.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll mention real quick about the frets, this is the second generation of the SBS guitars. The first generation had very small frets. And that was,
These are pretty big.
these are decent sized frets, but the first run of the guitars had these like small like vintage style frets,
Yeah,
and
we don't
everybody
like
was
them.
like, what's going on with that? You know, because it's a shred guitar, it should have
Right.
had big frets.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Anything about the pickups?
Well, the pickups, like the guitar, are also Steve Brown sound. They're also like SBS pickups. And yeah, it's a sub-brand of GFS. They're made by Guitar Fetish. They do a very cool thing with these pickups. These are quick plug pickups. They use a jack, like a little tiny cable.
Oh, no
with a jack.
soldering?
No soldering.
Nice.
Yeah, so you can swap these out with pretty much any quick plug pickup that's made by GFS.
And they have aftermarket pickups they sell?
Lots of different
Beautiful.
choices. They even
That's
have like
cool.
rail pickups and stuff you can put in.
All right, so I think one of the main points of these guitars is they're actually very customable, right?
Yeah, very good mod platforms.
Exactly.
Yeah, switch pickups easily, drop in a different bridge easily. Lot of options you can.
Very
do.
cool. And yeah, the finish looks great.
Yeah.
I
Nice
can't see
paint.
any blemishes.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love the neck. The neck is just beautiful. On my guitar, I changed the pickups. Originally, actually, it was kind of the same idea. Jackson manufactured their own pickups, which in my eyes weren't the best. You know, they were kind of low output vintage pickups. Kind of the same deal with the small frets. You know, it's kind
Right.
of non-fit into these
Yeah.
modern age shred guitars. So I installed bare knuckle pickups. So my favorites. That's a bare knuckle. Forgot how it's called. I forgot how it's called. And that's I forgot what it's called too. No, I'm joking. That's a trilogy. It's kind of a Ingve Malmsteen pickup.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, what else? I stripped the finish off the neck of the guitar. Yours
Yeah.
actually already comes
Yeah.
with the satin finish, which is kind of what I tried to achieve over here.
Now this is nice.
Right, the cutaway.
This recessed cutaway is
You
cool.
do have the...
Yeah, on the neck joint itself, but it doesn't have that slim cutaway there, which, you know, this is a pretty good sized block.
Yeah.
So that's a nice that's a nice feature to have that this doesn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch real quick.
Sure, yeah.
And now I want to hear your impression.
Sure.
After we'll hear some sounds, of course.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's do that. So let's plug these in and play them some more. And then I think we should do two things. Let's talk about how they feel, but also the audience can decide which one sounds better,
All right.
right? And that'll be a big deal to see how that turns out.
For sure. Mind you,
Yeah.
these are very expensive pickups. These are budget pickups.
Totally.
Interesting comparison. Let's go.
Cool. Let's check it out.
That was cool, man.
Yeah.
Nice playing.
Thank you, man. Yeah, you too.
Thank you. All right, let's talk about your impressions of my guitar, please. The
Sure.
OH one.
Yeah. You know, there's some very basic things. This guitar is noticeably heavier than that one. It's like, you know, not that that's really a problem, but it's just, you know, they definitely feel different.
Yeah.
This neck is, you know, we got different neck profiles. That's a
Right.
little rounder,
Right, more of a C shape.
more of a C
And
shape.
that's a D.
Yeah, more of a D, certainly flatter.
Yeah.
The, you know, they both have pretty big frets. These frets, I think, are wider than those.
True. Yeah. But they've been leveled a few times.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Now, that guitar, to my ears, sounds brighter and a little bit more like, honestly, a little more aggressive.
Trebly. Yeah.
Yeah, a little more trebly. This is a little smoother sounding, and which I think when I was playing this one, I feel like I have to push a little harder to get like the harmonics to come out and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I felt like that guitar made a little more noise, like a little more kind of like string fret noise, things
Yeah.
like that. This one is a little, I think the tone, especially on the bridge pickup, really is more pleasant. You know, it's a nicer sounding tone on this guitar.
Yeah, I agree. I think part of the issue is you can't really lower the bridge pickup. It's pretty high. It's pretty close to the string.
Yeah.
And it picks up all the
Right.
string noise you were talking about. So that's an issue for sure. And I think that's kind of, you know, the issue with a lot of budget guitars is the kind
Right.
of compromise in these aspects, right?
Yeah.
Playability wise, this is a great guitar though. So
Yeah.
I think if you change the pickups, you can achieve, you know, great things.
Yeah. I think the bridges, this one is definitely more stable.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one sounded good, and I think it responds well. It
Right.
feels good.
I'll tell you what, I
But-
was surprised to see how intact the arm is. Usually
Oh,
with
yeah.
the cheaper Floyd Roses, you have a lot of clucking,
Yeah.
and this one is spot on.
Yeah.
I like
yeah,
it.
that is nice too.
Even flutters.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think like as far as always returning to the same pitch and not losing tune as
Yeah.
you play it, this, you know, this one is superior in that. And again, the fact that this bridge is so old compared to that, which is basically brand new, and I would say as far as tuning goes, this one works better. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how these go over time. Have you had any experience with them over the years?
No, because it's, you know, it's fairly new that those bridges are being used. It's only been in the past maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So there's just not that many of those bridges that are old at this point. So
Interesting.
in 5 or 10 years, we'll see if they still work.
You know what? When these came out, they were new in the market as well.
Really?
The Charvel
Charvels?
just came out, yeah.
Okay.
I think back in the day, Kramer were the only ones who were allowed to have Floyd Rose on them. So Jackson manufactured their own J86, and then
Right.
they went to Charvel to get these.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to mention?
Well, the crackle finish, as cool as the bright yellow is, you can't beat the crackle finish.
can't beat
But
it.
if SBS somehow came out with a crackle finish,
That would be
or we
sick.
could put a graphic on it or something like that, that'd be pretty amazing.
Can you get any customized guitars from them? Do they take any custom orders?
No custom orders.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but I'm sure you could take a guitar and bring it to somebody and say, "Hey, do this and do that," and you know, turn it into a monster guitar. That'd be pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, let me talk about your guitar a little bit.
Yeah. What do you think?
First of all, it feels great. How much does it cost?
Yeah, like $379.
Crazy.
Under 400. yeah,
Insane.
Yeah.
That's like mind-blowing to me that you can get such a guitar. I think the one thing that could make this guitar a little better is a nice fret job, just to level everything out, because some frets do buzz out.
A little bit. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. Nothing. No dead frets.
No
but
dead, right.
Yeah. A little noise though.
Yeah.
Some noise.
Which is acceptable, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
Not every guitar gets a great fret job from the factory. And the neck, I think, is the main selling point. It's a very comfortable neck. Feels even all the way across. And great finishing job on it too. I love the set and finish.
Yeah.
The truss rod adjustment there
Yes,
at the bottom
yeah.
of the neck.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
love
great
that.
feature. And other than that, it really reminds me of the newer Charvel guitars. You know, the Pro Mod Charvels, which I had one. They're great, but they're expensive. They're pricey. They're like $1,000,
Oh, sure.
$1,200 easy.
Yeah. Easy. Yeah.
Right? So that's like kind of a quarter of the price.
Right.
Impressive.
I think the coolest thing, and I'll put this down for a second because I'll grab something else here, but I think the coolest thing about SBS is that, number one, they're doing all of these 80s inspired guitars, but the other thing is there's a ton of variations. There's a bunch of different colors, they've got different body styles, they've got relic finishes.
Oh, wow.
Different pickup arrangements. There's like some, HSS arrangements in addition to the double humbuckers. Let me show you this other guitar that I brought, because this is super cool.
Whoa.
Check this out.
Love it.
Ba-bam!
I'm a big sucker for purple guitars.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And kind of a telly body,
Yeah.
which you don't see very much. Although
Hardtail.
I think the modern Charvel, they do have some telly body stuff.
Right.
Yeah, hardtail.
I do like the tilted pickup though.
Yeah, very kind of Jakey Lee, right?
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, this is really cool too. Not quite as, I guess you can't call it a superstrat, but
Super telly.
yeah, very definitely still heavy in the 80s style here. So
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, these are two examples. There's got to be 20 or 30 different variations of the guitar. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta
Cool
say,
stuff.
if I'd want to get a new guitar and mod it, as
Right.
opposed to get an old guitar and mod it,
Yeah.
that's a great way to go, you know? Right out of the box, it's a nice guitar. The finishes are sick. And just get some new pickups, get a new tremolo, improve some of the hardware, and you're good to go.
Yeah. Coil splitting.
Coil splitting,
Very
nice.
nice, yeah. Awesome.
The hardtail looks good on it.
Yeah. I think these are stainless steel saddles, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, Max,
Yeah.
thank you for showing me and exposing me to this very cool guitars.
very welcome.
SBS,
Very
Guitar
welcome.
Fetish. Thank you for manufacturing cool guitars these days.
Yeah, yeah.
We definitely need more companies like that in today's market in affordable price points.
Yeah, we really have to thank Steve Brown from Trickster for doing it, because he, obviously he's working with the GFS guys and it's a collaborative effort. But yeah, like you said, we need more of this stuff, and I think we need more of the 80s guys to really spearhead this stuff, right?
For sure. They
Yeah.
know what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right, Max. Thank you for coming out.
Yeah.
As always, you're
No
the
problem,
best.
man.
Guys, I'll put a link to Max's channel, even though I'm sure you already follow him, down in the description below. Please subscribe to the channel if you like what I'm doing here. I got a lot more cool videos on the way and some new videos on Max's channel coming out.
Yep.
Thank you all. Stay safe. Keep rocking hard. And I'll see you all very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.